With slow ambulance response times reached a breaking point earlier this month, with Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson leveling a $500,000 fine against ambulance provider AMR for just 1 month of late arrivals, a fine that AMR is now appealing. Now, I've covered this story for many months, and AMR has repeatedly denied my interview requests, instead giving me emailed statements. Not anymore. It turns out a $500,000 fine stirred up something. AMR flipped the script, and they were the ones contacting me saying they finally want to share their perspective on camera. And you can bet it's our big story tonight. The issue is a huge concern for anyone in Multnomah County because when you call 911, you expect an ambulance to arrive quickly. Why wouldn't you? But for the last 18 months, AMR has repeatedly missed county standards that are contractually agreed on. Why? A nationwide shortage of paramedics is a big reason, but not the only one. And for those of you outside Multnomah County that are wondering why should you care, AMR is the ambulance provider for Washington County, Clark County, and Clackamas County, as well among many others. Randy Lauer is AMR's Vice President of Operations, who started as a paramedic in Multnomah County and has been with the company for 42 years.
Look at all the ambulances that are parked in our bay. They should be out in the street now. If we could staff them, they would be.
AMR needs to deploy 50 ambulances a day to cover all 911 calls in Multnomah County. Right now, it can only staff 32 of them. There just aren't enough paramedics in the county. Are we now in an ambulance crisis?
Yes, we are. This system is in crisis, and it's getting worse. And it's not sustainable the way it is.
The way it is meaning Multnomah County's requirement of 2 paramedics on each ambulance. County leaders and crucially EMS Medical Director Dr. John Jew have told me they believe 2 paramedics provide better patient care. Paramedics are more qualified and experienced than EMTs. Jew says in a city like Portland with high-risk calls, that matters. But it's much more common for ambulances to be staffed with 1 paramedic and 1 EMT. AMR, a national company with 267 operations, says Multnomah County is the only place it covers that requires 2 paramedics on every advanced life support ambulance. Switching to a 1 paramedic and 1 EMT model would allow AMR to spread out its current staff of paramedics, increasing the number of available crews. It's easier to hire and staff EMTs. Plus, Lauer says this is already in the surrounding counties where AMR operates.
Clackamas County has the same paramedic EMT, so does Clark County, so does Washington County. They all produce good patient outcomes. Multnomah County doesn't have anything special over them other than they require 2 paramedics.
Okay, that may be, but those counties still report issues with AMR. Washington County is short-staffed by 6 paramedics and 5 EMTs right now. In the first 6 months of this year, AMR ambulances were unavailable to respond to 850 emergency calls in Clark County. And Clackamas County fined AMR $450,000 for late response times this summer, later voting to forgive the fine if AMR invested half of it into workforce support and retention. Still, Lauer says the 1-in-1 model is crucial to improving response in the Portland area. If Multnomah County switched to a 1 paramedic and 1 EMT model, how quickly could that change overnight in terms of how many ambulances you have on the streets?
We could staff probably 4 to 6 more ambulances tomorrow if they let us do that starting today. And within 3 months, 4 months tops, we could have all 50 of those shifts filled. About half of them would be paramedic EMT ambulances, and half would still be 2 paramedic.
Paramedic schools shut down during the pandemic, helping to create this shortage. AMR is currently sponsoring full-ride scholarships for EMTs to attend paramedic training, about $18,000 for each person. But training incentives are long-term moves. There is another reason AMR could be calling for a 1-on-1 model: money. An EMT is cheaper than a paramedic. Based on pay scales in the contract, EMTs are lesser qualified but also make less than paramedics.
Correct.
Would this be a change to cut costs and save money from a private company's perspective?
No, we didn't look at it from a cost savings perspective at all. However, there will be some cost savings just because of what you said. So we're perfectly willing to whatever savings we achieve through paramedic EMT to contribute that money back into the system.
In August, AMR expanded into Washington County, a move that Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega-Peterson said was a big reason why she decided to fine the company. Why should AMR expand when it can't improve its current performance where it already is? I asked Randy Lauer that same question. He said AMR mostly hired former Metro West employees. Has that spread your resources out? Are you spread too thin covering these different counties that you're pulling from one to another?
No, it hasn't. We hired most of the paramedics from the former provider and a lot of their EMTs, and then we recruited a lot of EMTs. We've really gone out of our way to avoid robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Instead, the danger for Multnomah County is more long-term. Once Washington County employees unionize, they'll be allowed to transfer between counties per AMR's contracts. Already, 12 Multnomah County paramedics have asked to transfer to Washington County. Now, there aren't 12 open paramedic positions in Washington County right now, but it shows the demand.
If we can't prevent those 12 paramedics from leaving Multnomah County and going to Washington County, that makes Multnomah more dire right away.
More dire for the people who really need help, emergency help. Here on The Story, we've shared some of those stories. A Portland man in a wheelchair hit crossing the street by a hit-and-run driver. That man died in the street waiting 32 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. Even when a federal officer was attacked at the Pioneer Courthouse in downtown Portland, there wasn't an available ambulance to take him to the hospital. But still, it's difficult to definitively say when a late ambulance changes the medical outcome of a case. And the county and AMR say they don't have proof of declining patient care, largely because fire crews still arrive to provide immediate treatment within minutes.
How are you so confident that patient outcomes haven't been affected over this last year with you not getting to scenes as quickly as you would like to?
I'm not totally confident. I just don't disagree with the chair's statement because we haven't done a deep analysis on patient outcomes. So whether or not we're experiencing those bad outcomes now, I wouldn't disagree with the chair, but we're facing them. They're going to come. We're going to start having bad outcomes.
I also talked with Robert McDonald, the operations manager for AMR Multnomah County, and I tried to talk with him about solutions. The county and AMR are clearly at odds over how ambulances can and should be staffed. Meanwhile, you, the people who live and work here, are bearing the consequences and the risk of an understaffed ambulance system, not to mention the burnout of hardworking paramedics who are covering more than their share.
Could there be a compromise here of a couple of years of allowing a one-in-one model to allow that paramedic shortage to hopefully improve and to more paramedics get trained in order to potentially revert back to the two paramedic that the county wants so much, but at least give us a grace period to get our staffing up?
That's actually, you just described exactly what we are proposing. I would say let's try it for 2 years, or let's make this happen for 18 months to 2 years. But let's start measuring data now. Let's start showing proof of concept and whether this is the course of action and it's right. A fire chief said it, I think, very well, a local fire chief, is I'd rather have a paramedic and an EMT in 8 minutes than 2 paramedics in 25 minutes, no matter what the acuity of that call is. The EMS system, as it stands now, is ready for this change, in fact, clamoring for it.
To its credit, AMR has been remarkably consistent in its messaging with me for the last year. With the current staffing shortage, company leadership truly believes a 2 paramedic system is the problem and a 1 paramedic and 1 EMT system is the solution. That's their perspective. And for the record, there's not much in terms of competition or any other ambulance company that could step into Multnomah County and do the job. AMR's been here for a while. Lauer told me directly the longer Multnomah County delays in changing its requirements, the longer this crisis will continue and the worse it'll get.
So should members of the public here in Multnomah County be concerned knowing that in those moments of crisis and emergency when seconds and minutes matter, this is a situation that is not on the track to improvement as of now?
I think they should. I think we need to be totally honest with the public, totally transparent every step of the way. And the fact is that with a system in crisis the way it is, and it going from crisis to catastrophe pretty quickly, it is going to impact them. They're going to call 911 and expect an ambulance in 8 minutes, and it's not going to get there for a long time after that, while they're with their loved one or whomever who is in dire straits. We don't want that. I mean, we all got into this career to help people in crisis. We see people at their worst days. We don't want to make their worst day worse because it takes us a long time to get there. We just urge them to make this change, make it immediately. Let us start adding more ambulances, improve the response time, get to people faster, reduce the fatigue and the burnout in our paramedics, and get back to a sustainable system.
Now that's AMR's outlook. We've previously shared the county's perspective here on the story. EMS Medical Director Dr. John Ju is steadfast in his belief that 2 paramedics save lives. I asked him for supporting evidence. He sent me multiple links to studies this week, diving into paramedic response and cardiac arrest survival rates. There's little indication that either side wants to budge on ambulance staffing, leaving you, the people who live here, caught in the middle with deteriorating ambulance services. It's why we have been so diligent about following up on this topic, and it's something we'll keep doing until response times improve and the county and AMR finally find some solution. We have extended quotes from this interview in this story on our website if you'd like to learn more. Finally, we would love to hear your thoughts on this. Should Multnomah County drop the 2 paramedic requirement? Or do you put all of this on AMR? Maybe a little bit of blame on both sides. Email the story at kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail 503-226-5090. There's a new twist in our Tainted Water series that Pat brought you earlier this month, highlighting groundwater pollution in Umatilla and Morrow counties in eastern Oregon. A truck belonging to an organizer with the Oregon Rural Action Group caught on fire outside of a Boardman home that just an hour before had been visited by 3 state legislators. The lawmakers were invited by Oregon Rural Action to learn more about the contamination crisis. Here's a look at the damage. The Boardman fire chief confirms the fire is deemed suspicious, but the fire district there closed the investigation without nailing down a cause, leaving it undetermined. The executive director of Oregon Rural Action, Kristen Ostrom, says authorities told her a turpentine, a flammable liquid, was found at the scene. Ostrom says the fact that this truck appears to have been intentionally set on fire at the very time we were hosting a delegation of Oregon legislators makes this incident extremely concerning. Oregon Rural Action got their hands on the Morrow County Sheriff's Office incident report regarding the fire. And while most of the report appears to detail scanner traffic from start to finish, they pointed out a line that reads, quote, "This will definitely be arson, requesting LE unit being law enforcement." It's not clear who said that, but it shows that arson was suspected, at least initially. But as we told you earlier, the fire chief says the investigation is closed with the cause undetermined. Oregon Rural Action is calling for a full investigation. We called the Morrow County Sheriff's Office to see if they have an investigation underway. We had to leave a message late this evening and haven't heard back yet. But one of the lawmakers who made the trip to Boardman is speaking out tonight. Representative Con Pham is a Democrat representing far southeast Portland. She was one of the 3 lawmakers from the legislature's BIPOC caucus that heard from residents about the groundwater contamination. We asked her about the fire that started outside the home she had just left an hour prior.
And this sounds like something, frankly, out of an Aaron Brockovich movie or something. I just think communities who are speaking out, particularly low-income communities of color who are being targeted now by this kind of intimidation and threats is something that we just can't accept in Oregon. This is not an Oregon value. This is not who we are. And it's unacceptable. So I want to make sure that the authorities launch a full investigation to make sure that we get to the bottom of this and we send a clear message that this is not how we respond to communities speaking up for their rights.
And even though a direct connection between the fire and Oregon Rural Action's environmental work has not been officially determined by law enforcement, the executive director of Oregon Rural Action had this to say. "We are deeply concerned this violent action may be a message to rural community members and Oregon Rural Action that we should stop our efforts to secure safe drinking water. Safe drinking water is a fundamental right for all, including rural residents." Well, up next on the story, the task force charged with coming up with ideas to fix downtown Portland is putting the finishing touches on their plan. Tonight, we're hearing from 2 committee members involved with the task force, what they think needs to be done to help the Rose City and why they say the governor's group and its final report could fall short. Details next when the story returns. Back in August, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek created a new task force with the goal of coming up with ideas to fix downtown Portland. The Central City Task Force is made up of dozens of business and community leaders in Portland and more people on subcommittees tackling specific issues. They're charged with articulating a compelling vision and developing a set of near-term achievable strategies to revitalize the economic future of Portland's Central City by the end of 2023. The task force met 3 times over the last few months to discuss ideas, and in just over a week, they're set to give their recommendations at the Oregon Business Plan Summit. Tonight, we're hearing more about those discussions with 2 members of the Livable Neighborhoods Committee advising the task force. They work on ideas for cleaning up Central City neighborhoods. Frank Moscow is the founder of Adopt One Block. It's an organization that provides people with trash cleanup supplies and encourages you to keep your own neighborhood clean. He told us there are a lot of good ideas being floated, but he's worried that the root causes of some of Portland's problems aren't being tackled, especially when it comes to trash.
First of all, I think the jurisdictions need to own up to their responsibility. ODOT, PBOT, large landowners like Union Pacific Railroad, they have and own the most visible land, and they are consistently refusing to clean up and care for their land. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is that the city of Portland, the county, we used to do things that worked. And for some odd reason, we've stopped doing them. Several examples are, we used to have trash pickup once every week. Now we have trash pickup once every 2 weeks. We used to enforce anti-dumping and graffiti laws. We've stopped doing that. The other thing that we used to do is we used to do street sweeping. In the city of Portland, with over 12,000 blocks, we have a grand total of 1 functioning street sweeper.
Moscow says right now the city of Portland has things backwards.
We've made it easy, free, and without fear of penalty to do the wrong thing, and expensive and hard to access to do the right thing. In one of my articles prior, I've said that I could dump 20 bags of trash in Pioneer Square, drive off without fear of penalty. And I actually believe that to be true, based upon the Metro statistics for over 2,000 illegal dumps and a grand total of 1 fine.
We also heard from Ken Thrasher. He's the former CEO of Fred Meyer. Nowadays, he runs the Northwest Community Conservancy, a nonprofit that works on improving livability in the Pearl District. They work on getting people into shelters, providing security, and they run a hotline to report people in crisis and get them help. He says there are already a lot of other organizations doing good work downtown, like Portland Clean and Safe, Solve, and the neighborhood associations, and he's recommending they get more support and investment. He also says with such a big committee and so many ideas coming out of it, keeping track of everything and seeing how it works will be critical.
You've got 5 committees, getting all those into a strategic plan that is based on action and prioritized in a way that the monies that are available now can be spent wisely with some accountability and tracking of metrics. I think that's going to be critical as they look at moving it from the committee work to a final integrated implementation plan.
But he is optimistic it can be done.
What would happen if we did nothing? It would be really ugly. It really would be. We'd have a lot of tents and homeless people in the Pearl, but because of what we're doing, it's working. I think the same thing applies to the city and the governor's task force on the Central City. Is as long as we are being strategic with an implementation plan, that you can't do everything at once. So you got to prioritize this stuff and make sure you're taking on those things that you can get done quickly first, and then phase into those that take a little more time and need a little more money and investment. And some things you're gonna have to try and see if it works first before you invest a lot in it. So those might be pilots, but I'm always optimistic.
Thrasher also says the whole thing will need strong leadership, but with an all-new city government starting next year, there could be a big learning curve when it comes to implementing all of the task force's ideas. And that's a process we plan to follow every step of the way, starting with the announcement of those ideas on December 11th. We'll keep it right here. After the break, we'll take a look at some of your thoughts on my story from yesterday regarding Pacific Power asking regulators to limit its wildfire liability in the future. Many say it's a ridiculous ask, but some of you think it's completely reasonable. We'll explain right after the break. Well, the KGW Great Toy Drive is here, and we need your help to collect toys for more than 150 local nonprofits. If you give this week, local Toyota dealers will match the first $15,000 donated. Or just drop off a new unwrapped toy at any IQ Credit Union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealership. If you'd like to give from your couch, we can do the shopping for you. Go to kgw.com/toy and click Donate Cash. Now let's get to some of your thoughts on my big story from last night, dealing with Pacific Power asking state regulators to limit their future wildfire liability months after a jury found them negligent in the 2020 Labor Day wildfires. The utility has also opened the door for a possible request to raise customer rates to cover litigation losses that, at the moment, have amassed to tens of millions of dollars. Let's start with this from Michael. I get my electricity from Pacific Power. I don't see how it's in my best interests that I pay for their screw-ups. I do see how it's in their best interests. And Bing wrote to us, I remember the days leading up to the wildfires with ample amounts of warnings. The news media reported that PGE will and did de-energize some of their lines up around Mount Hood, and Pacific would not. We know what happened. People got hurt, and they should not get protection for bad decisions. But not everyone was taking that position. A few of you think it's very reasonable for the utility to be making these asks of regulators. Don wrote, why do people expect a private power company to not plan for and charge for all expenses that might occur? If a Fred Meyer truck causes an auto accident and is held at fault, Fred Meyer will pay the damages. Do you think that Fred Meyer includes potential legal costs when they set prices at the store? You bet they do, because the company has to make a profit or it will be out of business. And let's end on this from Mike. Power companies should get some protection going forward. Forests are drying out and people are moving into heavily forested areas. You want power, you need to assume some of the risks. We'll be watching this process closely in the weeks and months to come. In the meantime, if you want to voice your opinion to regulators on how you think they should handle this, you can find a link in our story on kgw.com. That is the end of our show. Thank you so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. Tomorrow's big story will also feature ambulance response times. I know, it's my week, not Pat's here in the story. But this time from the perspective of smaller fire departments who are struggling to make up for AMR's performance. When fire crews arrive first, they're often faced with difficult decisions. And at least one fire chief has had enough and has something to say. Details tomorrow night at 6:30. I'll make sure to see you then. Thanks for joining us.